Welcome to SDN Tech Networking Podcast, world's first human-curated AI podcast, where we break down complex topics into bite-sized, easy-to-digest pieces.
All right, we're diving into software-defined networking, SDN, and how it's shaking things up for enterprise networks. You sent a ton of stuff on this, so I'm guessing you're ready to get technical.
Absolutely. It's a really interesting time to be working in networking. SDN changes everything.
I love the energy. For anyone who's new to all this, let's start basic. What is SDN and why should we care, especially for enterprise networks?
Basically, SDN means taking control of your network away from all this complicated hardware and using software instead. It's about being flexible, being in control, and agility. Imagine old traffic lights. That's like a traditional network. They just aren't flexible. SDN is like having a smart traffic system that can change based on what's happening.
That is a great way to put it. So no more rigid hardware. SDN lets you manage your entire network with software, and that makes it much more adaptable. How does that actually work in an enterprise, though? Why is this smart traffic system so important for businesses now?
Well, the business world changes so fast these days, and businesses need their networks to be as fast as they are. SDN lets them change size quickly, add new apps easily, and react to security issues immediately, and all while being able to actually see and control all their network traffic.
It's about being able to keep up with how fast everything changes.
Yeah.
Got it. So this move to SDN, it's kind of like how everyone moved to the cloud for IT infrastructure, isn't it?
You got it. Cloud computing made computing resources more flexible and scalable. SDN does the exact same thing, but for the entire network.
This is making way more sense now. Okay, so we know SDN is important, but how does it actually work? I keep seeing this term decoupling in these articles you sent about the control, management, and data planes. That sounds kind of intimidating.
It sounds way more technical than it actually is. It's a really neat concept that makes SDN so powerful.
All right, so what does it actually mean? What are these planes, and why is it such a big deal to decouple them?
Think of a traditional network like a cake. It has 3 layers. The bottom layer is the data plane. That's where your data actually moves around, all the physical wires and switches. The control plane is the middle layer. It directs the data. It's like the traffic hops for your data. And the top layer is the management plane. It's how we configure and monitor the whole thing, like the people who decide where the traffic lights go and how traffic should flow.
Okay, I'm picturing this cake. So in a normal network, these 3 layers are all mixed together.
Yeah, they're really closely integrated, and that makes them hard to manage and scale separately. SDN does something radical. It separates those layers, allowing you to manage and optimize each one without affecting the others.
So instead of changing how to bake the whole cake, you could just add more frosting to one layer, take away some filling from another. That's pretty cool.
It is, and that's how SDN is so agile and scalable. You can optimize the data plane for pure speed and efficiency, the control plane can be customized for the best routing, and the management plane can be tweaked for centralized control and visibility, all without those layers getting in each other's way.
Okay, so this decoupling thing is really opening things up, but can we get into some specifics? The articles you sent mentioned some SDN technology like VXLAN and VTEPs. What are those, and how do they fit in?
That is a great question. They're actually perfect examples of SDN taking this decoupling idea and making it work in the real world. Take VXLAN, that's virtual extensible LAN. It's like building tunnels under a city.
Tunnels. Now you've got me interested.
Right. So a regular network is limited by physical connections. Think of them like roads. VXLAN lets you build these virtual tunnels that go around all that. Even if 2 devices are physically far apart on the network, they can act like they're right next to each other, talking through this tunnel.
So they're like shortcuts for your data.
Exactly. And these tunnels are managed by VTPs. Those are virtual tunnel endpoints. They're like the on and off ramps for the tunnels. They make sure the data gets packaged upright and sent to the right place.
Okay, now decoupling is making more sense. So we're making these virtual pathways on top of the physical network, which lets us move data around in a better way that's also more flexible.
Exactly. And because these virtual networks are separate from the physical ones, you can move them around, change their size, and use different security on them way more easily.
Which actually leads into another really important part of SDN, security.
Yes.
And when we talk security, we have to talk about zero trust. It's everywhere these days.
And for good reason. Zero trust isn't just a buzzword. It's a completely different way of thinking about security.
For sure. So before we can connect it back to SDN, can you explain what zero trust actually is?
Imagine a castle. Okay. The old way of doing things was to build a big, strong wall around the whole thing and then assume everyone inside the walls is good. But a zero trust model, That's like turning the castle into a city. You still have walls, but now there are security checkpoints everywhere inside too. You have to check everyone and everything, no matter where they are, before they're allowed into any specific area.
So just because someone's on the network doesn't mean they're automatically good.
Exactly. Zero trust means you never just assume someone is trustworthy. You have to verify it over and over again.
That makes sense, especially now with threats coming from everywhere. How does SDN help actually implement a zero trust model on a network?
SDN is actually perfect for zero trust because it gives us the tools to set up those granular security rules we were talking about. Remember microsegmentation. SDN lets us build those security checkpoints inside the network so that different applications and users are separated. That way, even if someone gets into one part of the network, the damage is limited.
So it's like having security zones inside the network itself.
Exactly. And because SDN gives you that centralized control and visibility, you can keep an eye on everything happening on the network, and those zero trust rules can change as needed.
This is powerful stuff, but I'm guessing using SDN in a real enterprise isn't always easy, right? What are some challenges people run into when they try to use SDN?
You're right, SDN is powerful, but it's not magic. There are definitely some challenges, but the good news is most of them can be solved with some planning and the right approach.
So what are some of those challenges companies might run into when they're setting up SDN?
Honestly, one of the biggest hurdles is making it work with their existing systems. A lot of companies have older systems that weren't built for SDN. Making those different systems work together can get really complicated.
So like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It takes careful planning to look at the existing network, find any compatibility problems, and then come up with a plan to move everything over to SDN in stages.
So you usually don't want to just get rid of everything and start over.
Almost never. Doing it in stages lets companies move over to SDN slowly, and it minimizes problems with their day-to-day operations.
That makes a lot of sense. What other challenges are there?
Another big one is finding people who actually know how to use SDN. SDN requires a different skill set than traditional networking, and finding qualified professionals who can design, deploy, and manage these networks can be really hard.
So it's not just about the new technologies, but having the right people to use it.
Exactly. Investing in training IT staff is crucial.
And then there's all different vendors to choose from. That's got to be overwhelming.
It definitely can be. The SDN market is still changing with new vendors and solutions popping up all the time. Choosing the right vendor and solution for your needs is a big deal. You need to think about your current setup, your future plans, and if that vendor can support you down the road.
So don't rush into anything. Do your research.
Absolutely. Take your time, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Talk to other businesses that have already switched to SDN, learn from them.
That's great advice. But let's be real. Even if you plan everything perfectly, something unexpected always comes up. How do you deal with that when you're using SDN?
You got to be flexible. That's the key. Be ready to change the plan if you need to. SDN is still pretty new, and what works one place might not work somewhere else. Don't be afraid to try things, make mistakes, and learn as you go.
So it's all about learning and getting better over time. But I want to end on a positive note. We talked about all the challenges, but what about the good stuff? Once you get past those challenges, what are the big benefits companies get from using SDN?
Oh, the benefits are huge. The biggest one is that SDN makes businesses way more agile. They can jump on new opportunities faster, scale their operations up or down as needed, and add new technologies and apps without a ton of hassle. That agility is really important in today's world.
So it's about staying ahead of the game and being ready for anything. What else?
SDN can actually save you a lot of money too. When you optimize your network resources and automate tasks, you lower your operating costs. And because SDN gives you better visibility and control, you have less downtime and better productivity.
So it's not just doing things differently, it's doing things better and cheaper.
You got it. And don't forget about security. SDN lets you actually use things like zero trust principles and microsegmentation, which makes the entire company more secure and lowers the risk of data breaches.
Which is more important than ever these days.
For sure. SDN gives businesses the tools they need to protect their most important assets, their data, and their reputation.
This is a really great deep dive on SDN. I feel like I actually learned something today.
Glad to hear it. It's a fascinating topic, and it's only going to become more important as time goes on.
So for our listeners out there learning about all this, what's the one thing you want them to remember about SDN?
Remember that SDN isn't just some new tech to learn. It's a totally different way to run your network. It's about making your network work for your business goals and making your organization more agile, more secure, and more efficient.
Great advice. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our SDN deep dive. Thanks to everyone listening. We hope you enjoyed learning about this as much as we did. Keep those curious minds engaged, and we'll be back next time to deep dive into a brand new topic.